world where we're often encouraged to achieve like someone else, look like someone else, and in essence, be someone else. But I want to challenge you to start thinking about your distinct qualities and how you can have a positive impact on the world around you by simply being true to you. My goal is to help listeners to reclaim their identities, embrace their unique design, and walk in the fullness of who they were created to be. You're listening to Identity by Design. Welcome to Identity by Design. I'm your host, Kim Anthony, and I have a passion to help women to walk in the fullness of who they were designed to be. Well, in an effort to attune to and to embrace my own unique design, I took an assessment called the Strong Interest Inventory. And I must admit, I'm a geek when it comes to doing assessments. I love to learn about most anything, but especially about how I'm wired and how I operate. So I took this assessment, and even though I thought I was really attuned to who I am, I learned something new. And as a result, it gave me permission to do life in a way that fits me instead of copying what works for everybody else. In essence, it set me free. And you know what? I am all about freedom. So I thought it might be helpful for some of you who are listening, especially if your goal is to walk in your authentic identity, for me to actually interview the person who analyzed my assessment. Her name is Nico Richie, and she's a personal consultant in the area of career counseling and understanding personality and how it impacts our lives. Nico, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's just an honor and a pleasure. And thanks for this opportunity, because we share that same passion, which is helping to provide the tools for men and women actually to live according to their design, the way they were created and destined to be. And that sense of completion in finding your destiny and living that way is second to none. And if I can play a little part or a little role in contributing to that piece as a person's walking through their journey of their life, I'm just delighted and so happy to hear your encouragement. You've been a blessing to me as well, and just encouraged me to keep going on this, because the impact that it can have on a person's life is so important for the sake of who they were meant to be and living their life that way. So thank you, Kim.
You're welcome, and I love to hear you speak about this, because it's clear that you're passionate about what you do as a personal consultant. And there are a lot of people out there who can benefit from your wisdom and your ability to just walk people through the outcome of the assessments and helping them to understand how that relates to their lives. So you're such a blessing, and I want to share you with everybody else. So first, describe for us the Strong Interest Inventory and what that is.
Okay, well, it's a scientific assessment. And what it does is it links our interests that we naturally have inborn with the degree of satisfaction that we have in our career, in our learning style and environment, even in our free time, in our leisure. The results show you the type of work, learning style, and leisure activities that you're very likely to enjoy. But I always forget, on the other side of the coin, it also points out the activities and the career choices and options that you're likely to not enjoy. And really, nobody wants to get stuck in a job or a career or on a path that leads to a place that they don't enjoy at all. So what this tool does is it links together our interests, it measures our interests, and connects them with our options in the world, with our career and learning and leisure. It's been around for a very long time, and this is very concerning to me. It's been around for almost 100 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yet, I know. It's one of the worst, best kept secrets I've ever seen. Because whenever I explain to people that there's a tool like this, the first question is always, why haven't I ever heard of it?
I think that was probably my question to you too.
And it was mine as well when I first, started looking for insight into career coaching. But the person who developed it was at Stanford in 1927, believe it or not. And his name is E.K. Strong. His last name is Strong, and so that's why it's called the Strong Interest Inventory. It does measure your interests that are strong or weak, but it's just kind of a funny coincidence that his name was Strong. And he developed this instrument that was later expanded in the 70s by another researcher. And it consists of 291 questions. And it asks you about your likes and your dislikes, things that you like doing or ways that you like doing things and ways that you don't like doing things. And then it compares your answers with the answers of other people who are satisfied in their work and they've done it for 3 years or more, and they do it in the typical way. And it turns out, this is so amazing, but it's scientifically proven that people who enjoy their work and they do it in the typical way have a lot of interests in common, things they like and things they don't like. And that kind of helps to create the work culture, because the expression birds of a feather flock together really applies. So people who are happy in their work alongside of other people who are happy in the same work share lots of interests. And if you can identify those interests and match them with your work environment, that's what you would call a good fit.
What about male versus female? Are the results pretty much the same, or have you found that there are differences in what women are interested in compared to men?
It's interesting. That's a good question. Women and men, we all have our own interests, let's say. But in terms of motivation for a career, it is different among men and women. So, for example, once you get your test results, you find out what your interests and motivations are. So let me just give you a few examples. A music teacher, for instance. A woman who's a music teacher, her primary motivation is helping. And her second motivation is in the artistic realm, the music. But for a man who's a music teacher, his primary interest and motivation is the music.
Oh,
and secondarily comes the helping.
Really?
So it's the priority of interest and motivation. And I'm glad you bring this up, because I think in this day and age, we all believe in equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And, we believe men and women should have the equal opportunity to pursue the career that they desire. But while that's being said, their interests are not equal in every career. Another example, let's see, would be a dietitian. A woman who's a dietitian is primarily interested in the science and the research aspect, followed by a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit and the helping. A man who's a dietitian is primarily interested and motivated by helping, and then entrepreneurial, and then the data organization. So while there is some overlap, their interest levels are different, whether you're a man or a woman. So when you take the inventory online, you must designate if you're a man or a woman. Otherwise, they can't score the test results, because they can't compare your answers with women in particular careers.
So even though a man or woman may be interested in the same career, they're usually interested for different reasons. Got it. Okay, I'm going to play the skeptic's advocate.
Okay.
There are various assessments out there that help you to understand all sorts of things about yourself, your personality, your strengths, your spiritual gifts. What about those who have already done some of these other assessments and they're asking, how is this one any different? Can't I just use the results I already have to find my job fit?
Right.
What would you say to that person?
Well, that's a great question. And right off the bat, I would say, basically, I believe skills are learned, interests are inborn.
Oh.
And so, and I say personality is what you take with you to work. So if you're talking about a personality assessment, you bring your personality to your work environment, whatever that might be. And so a lot of the personality assessments are simply about personality, and they try to extend that to a work environment. And it's a little bit like mixing apples and oranges. The strong interest inventory is designed and created for work. So it measures work and interest and satisfaction. So it combines your interests with work. It's not mixing apples and oranges. So, and I love quotes, and so I'll just share one with you from Hamlet, actually by Shakespeare. He said, "This above all, to thine own self be true."
Mm.
And it's such an old quote, but so relevant to us today as we're looking to discover, where do I fit?
Right.
We have to know, if I want to be true to myself, but that implies that first I need to know who I am. And discovering what are these inborn interests, and how does that relate to job environments? And that is one thing that the strong interest inventory does, is the theory tells us that people and personality can be represented by these 6 themes. And job environments are divided into the same 6 themes. And that people will naturally gravitate toward the theme or the areas where they can express their interests and preferences, and also avoid, if possible, the ones that are uncomfortable, that don't express themselves. And when you can line up your interests and who you are, is your inborn interests, with your work environment, then you find you can be true to yourself in that environment, because that environment values who you are.
Nico, I'm going to ask you to describe those 6 themes in a moment. But before that, I'd like to have you speak to those who are not necessarily looking at their own interests. They're not being true to themselves, but they're actually looking at what other people are doing, and they're saying, hey, I think I want to try that. And I say this because that was me. For so many years, I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand how I was wired. And I determined my career by watching other people and trying the things they were doing because I thought it might be fun. And of course, there were quite a few times when I discovered that they were not quite the fit for me at all. There were careers I thought I would love to do for the rest of my life, but then I'd do it for 2 weeks, and then it was like, oh my goodness, this is not good. Not good. Is it common for someone to look at life through those lenses, or is it just me and a few other people?
Well, for some people, what they want to do in life is very clear, and the path is clear. And that's great. It works for them. But I really do think for most of us, it's not very clear. And there's a lot of voices out there, especially for young people.
Oh, yeah.
They have their teachers, their parents, their peers, lots of voices, even TV commercials, telling you to come to some technology institute or, get your degree online or whatever it might be. And all of those other voices in the world seem to shout down our inner voice. We just can't hear our own voice, and we don't know that our voice, how important it is, and we don't have the words to express what's important to us. And that's what this tool does, is it gives you the words to describe what's important to you, and it filters, rather than taking what you might have described as like a trial and error approach.
Right.
I'm going to try this, and if I like it, I'll keep going, and if I don't, I'll try something else. That could take a lifetime.
Tell me about it.
If you're not very lucky, you're just depending on luck to stumble upon the right thing. And, people mean well when they tell you, oh, this would be a great path. I've heard one of my clients was told that she should get her master's in social work because that's a great degree to have, and there's lots of work to be had in it. But she was hesitating because it didn't feel right. And after we did the strong report, it literally came out to be almost the last thing she should ever do.
Oh my goodness.
Was get a degree, a master's in social work. She was a lot more interested in science and scientific things and nanotechnology.
Oh my God, that's so different from social work.
Yeah. And, if she just had listened to the voices and been practical, and, she could have spent a lot of money and a lot of time. And then what happens is people get stuck on a path, You've invested time and money into it, and now you have to see it through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's heartbreaking. Um, I would rather have people have the tools, the language, and the confidence to describe, this is who I am, and this is what's important to me, and this is where
Right.
I'm going to function at the highest level.
One of the things you mentioned that really stood out to me was that this inventory helps us to understand just how important our voice is. It validates who we are. Well, let's jump into the 6 themes of the strong interest inventory and how they help us to determine the best job fit and the best job environment for us.
Sure. Well, if you think of a hexagon, which is a six-sided um, what is that thing called? I'm not good in math. Whatever that thing is, it's a hexagon.
It's a shape.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. Just say it's a shape.
It's a shape.
It's
I think it looks like a stop sign.
yeah, it does.
Okay. Okay. So thank you for that. Um, the Rhiasec hexagon, the word Rhiasec is made up, it's an acronym of the letters that describe each one of the corners of the theme of the hexagon. So it's RIASEC. So that's what represents the Rhiasec hexagon. Each corner of the hexagon represents a personality type and a work environment. So, I'm going to start with the R. Just picture that being at the top, and we'll work our way around the hexagon to each of the corners, and we'll pause in between, just so we don't go on too long here. But the R represents the realistic theme, and again, this is personality and work environment, and we call these people the doers, and they are hands-on people, product-oriented, and they like machines and equipment, the actual machinery of the computers, sports, and the military is here because it's an outdoors thing, hiking, biking, anything that's action oriented. And that's the R represents the realistic theme. And next door to it, as you move around the corners, is the I, which represents the investigative theme. And we call these people the thinkers. And these people are analytical and research oriented. And their interests are in theory, science, math, medicine, and research. And just from those two, as I mentioned them, what people do frequently without even being asked to is they're thinking, do I relate to that one? Do I relate to that one?
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to say, yes, I do, and no, I don't. There's really no right or wrong answers. It's just who you are.
I love that.
So, yeah. So, my difficulty in describing what this shape was because I'm not anywhere in that investigative theme.
Well, I love that there is no right or wrong answer because sometimes I think we feel the pressure to be like someone else or to be the next great so and so when we should just strive to be our greatest selves.
It's so true. And really, we'll never be happy being great at copying someone else.
No,
I
absolutely
just think
not.
to thine own self be true. I come back to that again. We will be most happy and fulfilled when, we're being who we were made to be.
Nico, when you said that, it reminded me of something my son told me when he was in high school. He came home from school one day and he just gave me the biggest hug. And he said, Mom, thank you so much for allowing me to pursue the career that I want to pursue. And I just hugged him back and I said, babe,
Wow.
where'd that come from? What made you even think about that? And then he told me about some of his friends at school whose parents were forcing them to be a part of the family business, or they were forcing them to become a doctor because they were doctors, or lawyers because they were lawyers, and how perhaps these kids were interested in the arts or something completely different from what their parents did, but they were being pressured to go to these schools and to major in these majors that they did not have a desire to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. It is, and that's a big, real problem for people because, especially when parents are involved, how does a kid say to their parent, I don't want to do the family business? It seems personal.
Yeah.
But like I like to say, it's not personal, it's personality. Okay. It's kind of an inborn nature and personality that desires to be expressed. And, the real risk, not only of missing out on joy, if you're doing something that other people want you to do, first of all, there won't be much joy in it. But secondly, I'm pretty sure you're only going to be mediocre at it because you just don't have
Mm-hmm.
the level of interest that you would need to compete with others who are interested in that. And, who wants to live a life that's devoid of joy and just kind of mediocre? So it's really important to know who you are and have the ability and the opportunity to express that. And, I think once people find that, they're set free and they experience that joy. And what I want to see is a person who's not looking at the clock and counting down the minutes till it's finally time to be done.
Been there, done
Yeah,
that before.
but the one who looks up and says, "Are you kidding me? It's 5 o'clock already. Where did the time?"
It's time to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've talked with us about the realistic, the R in that hexagon, and
Uh-huh.
then we went on to I, the investigative. What do we have next? The A?
Yep. The A comes next, and this represents the
Okay.
artistic theme. And here we call these people the creators. And these folks are idea oriented and they're interested in the arts, obviously, communication, culture, language, and literature. So that's the artistic theme. And then it's followed around the hexagon to the S, which represents the social theme, which we call the helpers. And these are people who are primarily interested in being helpful, like it says, service oriented and teamwork. Um, and when you say you love to help people, and I say I love to help people, that's a clue right there. Anyone that says that probably has a high interest in this theme and would be a good fit and would enjoy some of the work in that area. So that's how you begin to use the codes.
E.
Okay. E represents the enterprising theme. And we call these people the persuaders.
Persuaders. I think my
Yep.
son must be a persuader. We used to call him the negotiator when he was
Yep.
little.
Well, there you go. You're onto something. You've recognized it already. It was inborn, God given. These people are results oriented. And the work environment, their interests in the work environment here would be business, politics, leadership, and entrepreneurship. And then finally, the final category here is the C, which represents conventional, which we call the organizers. And these people are orderly and accurate, data oriented, and their interests in work would be in the areas of like accounting, investing, and information systems.
I laugh. I apologize because this is the absolute last on my list. And it's very clear from my life that
Yeah,
this C is just way down there.
right. So a career, imagine a career in that area where you spent 40 hours a week
Mm,
doing that
dreadful.
kind of work. Yeah.
Not good. Not good.
But one thing that's interesting that I want to share with you about how we use these codes is that basically we measure interests in these 6 areas and how they compare and match up with people who work in those areas. And then that's how we generate a code which helps you find your career path. But just this is a little FYI, just for fun. Have you ever met a person who loves sports? And they're always talking about statistics and they know every stat, whether it's batting average or touchdown completions. Well, interestingly, these are people who would be in the R and the C theme because the R representing the sports and outdoors and action oriented
Mm-hmm.
is where the interest in sports comes from. The C with the data, which is right next door to it, is where their interest in organizing data and information and statistics comes from. And because they're side by side, it has a higher correlation than any other um, one of the 6 themes. So now I look at the world completely different. When I meet a sports fan who's got all the statistics, I can say, oh, okay, so you're clearly in the R and the C themes.
Do they look at you like you're crazy?
I kind of keep it to
Oh,
myself, but I
I
ask
was
them a lot
picturing
of
you going
questions.
up to someone saying, you are
No, no, no.
clearly an R and a C.
No, I get to say, so you really like sports? I love sports.
Ah.
And you really like statistics? Oh, yeah. And how long has it been that way? Oh, my whole life. Do you think you know more stats on your favorite team than anybody? Absolutely.
Mm.
And it's just interesting because this tool not only is reflected in your work and career choices, but also in your leisure and free time, and your hobbies. And so sometimes if people can't find an outlet for their interests in their area of work for
Mm-hmm.
one reason or another,
Mm-hmm.
they can get an outlet and express themselves in their free time, in their leisure.
Oh, Nico, I am so glad you brought that up because maybe there's somebody out there who feels that if they don't find fulfillment on their jobs, then they'll never live a life of fulfillment.
No, in fact, sometimes, life happens and
Mm-hmm.
circumstances be, what they may be. One person who I was working with loved her job, but she just felt like something was missing. She didn't know what exactly it was. And after doing the inventory, and she was actually thinking I might need to change my career and just do something different. She was in her 50s already. Well, after we did the inventory, she realized that, yeah, about 80% of her job was exactly what she wanted. The 20% that was missing, she would have to change careers, or she could just find a way to meet that need outside of work. And because she was making good money and she was basically happy with her work, she said, that's my solution. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing in my work, but I'm going to make sure that in my free time, this is the choice that I make because I still have this need and this drive to express myself in this way. So, it solved her problem. She didn't have to quit her job and start over. She just needed to, add a little more variety to her life experience outside of work.
That's very encouraging. Now, did she find that she was more fulfilled? Maybe not directly and only in her job, but that outlet that she now took up, that hobby or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
did she find life to be a little bit easier and more fulfilling for her overall?
I think she found her work to be more fulfilling because
Really?
she knew why it was missing a little something.
Ah.
And she found her free time more fulfilling because she was filling it up with something that was important to her but had been overlooked. And that happens to us at various stages in our life. We know what's important to us, but life happens
Mm-hmm.
and things get overlooked. And if you were to take this and I were to ask you, well, how is this expressed in your life? And someone might say, or in your work, well, it's not there right now. Do you miss it? Well, now that you mention it, yes, I just didn't realize how much. So,
So,
yeah,
Nico, I
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're saying that if someone is in a career that is not fulfilling, but they don't really have an option to leave that career at this present time, you're saying that if that person finds another outlet that does fit his or her wiring,
Mhm.
then that will translate over to the workplace and bring more fulfillment there?
I think so because you're getting your general fulfillment. You're fulfilled as an individual. So you're not sensing that my job is causing me to suffer so much.
Ah.
And another one of my clients, a young lady who felt again like she had reached the end of where she could go in her job, it gave her the opportunity to speak up and ask, this is what's important to me. The part of my job that I'm doing now, I'm doing well and I love that, but I could do so much more. I would love to do this and this and this. Is it possible for me to do that? So she was able to ask and incorporate more opportunity into her position. So, it's not always that you need to change your job or your work because, it's very difficult to find a situation and a time in life when everything lines up perfectly.
Right.
But if you can let your boss know, this is my passion, this is my energy, my interest. Can we incorporate more of this into my job? Lots of times they'll be open to that. And if your job is not going to afford you that opportunity, you can find that in your free time. It contributes to the wholeness of the individual and their overall satisfaction in life.
Well, Nico, those are some amazing discoveries for me to hear you say that, because I meet so many people who are dissatisfied with their jobs. But as you say, they may be in their 50s or their 60s and reaching into retirement, but they're so dissatisfied. And for
Mm-hmm.
them to have a creative outlet that will help them to experience overall fulfillment is encouraging, to say the least. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who are interested in speaking with you more about this. Can you tell them the best way to find out more about you and what you do with the strong interest inventory and the other assessments you give?
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Kim. Well, I have a new website, which I'm very excited about. Since I'm not into technology, I'm stretching myself because I really, my passion is to help people find their path. And, you know, I, I just get fulfillment from that. Setting up the website is just a necessary that, we've done.
Mm-hmm.
So the website is my name, my full name, NicoletteRichie.com, which is NicoletteRichie.com, NicoletteRichie.com. And there's a contact form on there. It explains more detail about these assessments and a little bit about myself. But yeah, that'd probably be the best way to reach me.
All right, sounds good. Well, Nico, I want to thank you so much for joining me. It is obvious that you are passionate about our topic today. And even as you speak, even though I can't see you, your face is lighting up, and your passion can be heard through the airwaves. So I want to thank you for being here and bringing forth a wealth of wisdom for us today.
Sure. And, let me just thank you, Kim, and just say there's no greater joy than finding your path and fulfilling your destiny. And I just want everybody to have that opportunity. And again, if this tool would contribute to that, it would just be my delight to walk with you in that process of discovery and application. So thanks for giving me this opportunity, Kim.
My pleasure. And thank you to our listeners. I'm Kim Anthony, and I've been talking with Nico Richie about the strong interest inventory and how this assessment helps people to find their job fit. Until next time, make it your goal to embrace your unique design and walk in the fullness of who you were created to be. You've been listening to Identity by Design. If you'd like to share your thoughts or recommend a topic, please leave us a comment or email us at trueyou@theidchallenge.com. That's TRUEU@THEID challenge.com.